Welcome to the Flourish with Dr. B podcast, where we inspire people to flourish in mind, body, and spirit. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about June being Brain Health and Alzheimer's Month. It's really it's Alzheimer's, brain health, and caregiver support. Um, Talking more less about the dementia, but just more about general brain health. I think more and more these days, even younger generation really like all the folks are really focusing on brain health and what can we do to stave off dementia, right? So for the most part, most of you know, I think that I've had my own brain health journey, and it was about almost 2 years ago where I unexpectedly experienced a ruptured brain aneurysm. And I'm very, very lucky because after 3 weeks in the hospital, mostly in the ICU, and three brain procedures later, I didn't have any sequelae, we say in medicine, around any neural deficits or anything. And during the first few weeks after an aneurysm, it's a very critical time because you can develop a stroke. You can have what's called a hemorrhagic stroke where it bleeds out into the brain, or you can have an ischemic stroke, maybe a clot will lodge out, and then now you a part of your brain doesn't get blood supply. So those first few weeks after this happens is very critical in terms of survival, to be quite honest. And when I was going through it, I knew that this was going to be a long haul. And I also knew that if it's to be, it's up to me kind of thing, because I'm a big believer in that every your cell in your body can hear you and your thoughts. So I knew that my brain it was gonna take a while for it to rehabilitate. I'm still rehabilitating now. For the first year and a half, it was very hard to exercise, let's say. So I had lost like 20 pounds in the hospital, and I gained it all back, and then some. But because I found it so hard to exercise while I was in recovery, I kept on getting headaches and felt nauseous. I had to really step back and like do it bit by bit. I'm getting stronger bit by bit. But I wanted to share with you some tips on how to, everything that I did was um also helps with menopause, all the brain fog and the changes, and because when our estrogen and hormones are decreased, now there's a lot of, and it's way beyond the scope of this discussion, but there's a lot of changes around the neural signaling in your brain. So you have a lot of brain fog. And like me, I'm like finding words, word search. And for the longest time, I thought that it was because of my brain injury. But more and more I think about it, the past year and a half, all these things are more and more because of menopause. So I had a double whammy. But I always still practice on a daily basis. I practice some kind of movement or stretch or exercise. Again, these days it's more, but it increases blood flow and oxygen to the brain. So I know that that's important in anything we do, whether we have any kind of brain conditions or not. It's one of the best ways to decrease your chance of getting dementia. Why? We're bringing oxygen and blood flow to all the parts of the brain. I always say this part of the brain that handles this is different than this part of the brain. So if we're doing things like lifting and walking and breathing heavy, that's not only just pumping blood to our brain, but it's also making different neurons in our brain fire off. Healthy foods to reduce inflammation and support metabolism. Prayer and meditation to calm the nervous system down. Our society, where as a whole, anxiety is at an all-time high. It's been increasing since COVID. There are studies done that mostly the 20 to 30 something generation have a high um, incidence of anxiety ever since COVID, and just our society as a whole. But that group specifically. So that also affects your brain health. And we need to find ways to decrease that because when we're anxious, we have more cortisol, and cortisol wreaks havoc on the brain, on the heart, on almost every organ system. So prayer and meditation for me helps calm my nervous system down, and faith in knowing that it's not in my hands and even goes beyond medicine. I really believe helped me heal because I just was very adamant about believing that I was healing as I was reconstructing my brain. And when I was in the hospital, that I even like would march in place if I didn't have PT that day, or do things like this when I was just sitting there, or praying my rosary and moving that through my hands. Like did some coloring things on my iPad, and I just knew I was saying to myself, if I have to rebuild my brain, like when you're renovating something, I want to do it right. So I was trying very hard to be cognizant of that, flooding my brain with thoughts that it's healing, but also listening to my body, and also, just trying to decrease a stress or any kind of negative thinking. I would replace it with some kind of faithful thinking. I followed medical advice. I am not one of those doctors that are the worst patients. I do kind of, think a lot about the different um, things that were happening to me at the time, and certainly after, when I was home. I think I had more anxiety around it because I knew what things could go wrong, but I really listened to my body. If something was wrong, I would text or message my neurology team, neurovascular surgery team, and make sure that I was being on top of things and really advocating for myself and my health decisions. So those are really important in my brain health journey. The other thing is creativity, right? So crafts, painting, baking, any kind of arts and crafts, cooking, digitally creating things like on my Canva app. Those things really help me take my mind off pain. And I couldn't read as much like I used to because it was just hard for me to focus. Again, I don't know if that was the pain from the injury or menopause. And then I used to love to walk and read, or walk and listen to a podcast, or listen to a TED Talk, but that wasn't part of my health journey, my brain health journey in the past year and a half. It was really around finding new ways that I could stimulate my brain but not get tired from it. And I have to admit, I used a lot of things like apps, like coloring apps and painting apps and things like that. But it helped and different puzzles, like word search puzzles. Very basic, but I feel that caring for my brain in little actions every day brought me to where I am now. I do want to talk about quickly foods that support your brain health, because I really also tried to eat these and continue to eat them, because if our whole body, the whole adage of you are what you eat is so true. And if you want to rebuild your brain, or you want to make it strong, and you want to make it very healthy, we're talking about colorful vegetables. So spinach, kale, broccoli, carrots, tomatoes, eating the rainbow, right? So I always say that when you eat the rainbow, you're eating all the essential minerals, antioxidants, and vitamins that you can from these brightly colored vegetables. So eating the rainbow means something red, orange, yellow, green, and blue, or violet, right? Omega-3 rich fish, salmon, sardines, tuna, nuts and seeds, walnuts, almonds, pumpkin seeds, chia seeds, and flax seeds, beans and legumes like lentils, black beans, chickpeas, mung beans. I'm a pescatarian, so I eat seafood, but I try not to have too much seafood during the week. So I always lean on the lentils and the chickpeas and mung beans. Whole grains like oatmeal, brown rice, quinoa, fats, healthy fats like avocados, extra virgin olive oil. And staying hydrated is really essential for brain function and just overall body function. Our bodies are like 90% water. So most of the times when we're hungry, we're actually very dehydrated and our body doesn't know how to discern. So drink that water while you're deciding on what to eat. That's what I always say. And those are just some general guidelines that support brain health. Foods to limit are sugary drinks and sweets, highly processed foods, excess salt, foods high in saturated and trans fats, and excess alcohol. So that's just a very brief overview on what foods support your brain health and what foods do not. Obviously, getting adequate sleep is also important. And just really finding ways to relax and bringing your cortisol level down, which leads me to a very important thing that has helped me really start to protect my brain health, and it's boundaries, right? I grew up being very loose with my boundaries. Okay, I'll do that. Okay, I'm tired, but I will do this. Okay, I think it's the kin keeping, the firstborn daughter syndrome, whatever you want to call it. And I noticed that I harbored a lot of anger around that, and I didn't even realize it till after what I call my Lifequake. And I actually want to share with you a clip from from the Oprah Winfrey podcast in which I was one of the panelists because it really talks about how let me give you a backstory. The guest is an author who studies and wrote about being a revenge addict. So there's really a thing called revenge addiction. And when the call came out to fill an audience, I'm part of the Oprah Winfrey Oprah Daily community. So one was about millennials, which I'm not, and one was about gray divorce, which meant like divorce over 50, which I wasn't going through. And I saw one about revenge addiction, and I was like, am I a revenge addict? I don't know. So I took his test, the author's test online, and I scored pretty like the low end of the high end, like just like I may be a revenge addict, but it was like a low end of being one, but a high end of like, not really being comfortable without seeking revenge. So I was like, I guess I am. And I wrote a letter to the producers, like they told me to, an email, and I got chosen. And one of the things I said was, P.S., if you don't choose me, it's okay. I won't slash your tires. I'll just imagine it. And the producer got back to me and like, haha, please don't slash my tires or something like that. But over a series of little interviews and stuff, I was chosen to be on this panel. So I'm there with, and Ben also, and we were chosen with, I guess, about 10 people on it. But I'm just going to I'm just going to share the one clip that we did, and it'll kind of describe why I started having boundaries and why this life quake was actually a wake-up call for me. Like always say, I had a coach to coach session one time, and the coach at the time, her name was Sherry Joe, and I'll never forget her because she is a cancer survivor. And in that episode, in the not the episode, the coaching training that we did, she said that cancer was the best thing that ever happened to her. And I could not believe somebody would say that. But she said it made me prioritize things in my life. And I just was like, this was before my life quake. Um, and I just couldn't believe that. I was like, wow, that must be pretty profound. Well, 2 or 3 months later, I went through my own life quake. And it I don't want to say it's the best thing that ever happened to me because it's grueling and I'm still recovering from it. But it has shown me I've never taken care of myself more than I'm taking care of myself. right now. Maybe when I was pregnant, but then I was always still pushing myself. I got to do this, I got to do that, I got to work. But now I really listen to my body and I really treat it well. And I say things like, I'm proud of you. You got us through this. Okay, you gained weight, but you know what? You got us to be alive and you've been through a lot. And, so I really, really look at it now as a little bit of a silver lining or a blessing in disguise because it really has helped me prioritize. So let's take a look at the clip and I'll see you afterwards.
Belinda is a pediatrician, and you're here with your husband, Ben. Hello. In your email, you said you're a recovering revenge addict.
I'm a recovering revenge addict.
Hearing Scarlett's story should help you a little bit, right?
Yeah. Everybody's story, actually.
Yeah.
I think growing up in a culture where you were told not to speak as a child and you were disciplined and you were shamed if you did wrong, but not praised when you did well. And then I was bullied all my life. But I became like an overachiever to overcome that. But I scored a 60 on your quiz, so I think I have a lot of work to do.
Right.
And I find when I get shamed or bullied or whatever or wrong that it starts here in the chest and it goes like to my head. And I have to kind of like breathe and whatever, take a hold of myself. Well, I'll take you back almost a year ago. My husband and I were celebrating our 26th wedding anniversary up in Lake George. And I bent over to pick something up and I felt this like as if a fire hydrant opened up in my chest and shot in my head. And as a physician, I knew I was having a ruptured brain aneurysm at that moment. And so I told Ben, please bring me to the emergency room. I started vomiting profusely. And I told him once we were 5 minutes away that I don't know how long I'm going to stay lucid. So you have to make sure they scan me, tell them I'm having the worst headache of my life. You cannot leave me in a corner somewhere because I don't know how much longer I have. And luckily, they got me into the CT scan. They transported me to my alma mater, Albany Med. I stayed there for almost 3 weeks in the ICU, 3 brain surgeries later. And I'm a living miracle, honestly. But I attribute a lot of that to the fight or flight, the stress, the rage, everything that is in my mind when I feel something's not going right or somebody wronged me.
You feel like somebody wronged you.
Somebody wronged me. I mean, it's not only that, but it has a lot to do with that.
So were you wronged as a child? Did something terrible happen to you?
Nothing terrible, just very... being a firstborn Asian girl in a family, I was basically a third parent, but an invisible third parent. Mm-hmm. And there was a lot of pressure put on me. I do a lot of work with women that are from my culture, and I see this a lot, which is another reason I was going to ask, is this culturally related? Because there's a lot of women that harbor this kind of rage and anger, but it's pent up from years of, strict discipline, high standards, and really just not being able to speak your mind, I think. So...
You've been repressed.
Exactly.
All these years, you've been repressed. Ben, you're shaking your head because you have to deal with that. Yes.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, it's just heartbreaking because I see the blood boiling up inside her. Sometimes it's directed at me.
Yeah.
And most of the time deserved. But whenever it is, whether it's her family or friends or anyone that may have wronged her, I do think that I notice a big difference now, post Lifequake, as we call it.
Yeah.
I see her catching herself and making the choices in those moments to not to steer left instead of right and try to avoid that blood boiling. And I'm so proud of her for that because I think that she recognizes that that's about her health at this point.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't want to see my family go through what they went through those past 3 weeks in the ICU with our sons at my side, and my health just means so much more than that boy.
But you realize you are a revenge addict.
Oh, yes.
You realize you see yourself in his
Yes.
book. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Much more in my 20s and my 30s, but
Yeah.
now, like, especially after this Lifequake, I'm like, it's not worth it. It's just not worth it.
It's not worth it for any of us, is what you're saying in the science of revenge.
No, it's not. As I say, we know from studies that revenge is the primary motivation for not only all forms of human violence, but also for all forms of nonviolent forms of revenge that afflict us. You know, you're not a violent person, but you're seeking nonviolent revenge, right, on a regular, or maybe you are, and I didn't pick that up.
I try not to be.
Try not to be, and that's good. But we do engage in other forms of revenge seeking that are not violent and that are almost as destructive of families, communities, schools, workplaces, workplace sabotage. In schools, we have, teacher-student and student-student battles and bullying that is almost as hurtful as physical violence is the psychological harm that we inflict on each other. And all of this is motivated. You have to go to, why do you want to hurt other people?
So pretty profound, huh? I feel like when I was sitting there and telling Oprah Winfrey this, it was such a turning point in my life that I can't describe it. First of all, just meeting Miss Lady Oprah, Lady O, I was just, and then we got to take pictures with her, was just a dream of a lifetime. But that just cemented that experience where I said, yeah, this is it. This is a turning point in my life. Going through empty nesting, missing my boys, knowing that my role in their life is shifting to not being like the caregiver, but now being like a team partner or a team player. It's a tough shift, and it's a tough shift when you're going through menopause. I always say in my empty nesting talks that, um, we mothers are saying, oh, they're being so dramatic and everything when their kids are leaving college. Well, most of the times around the time the kids are leaving colleges, mothers are going through perimenopause and menopause. So that whole, empty nest thing is a real syndrome. It's actually coded now, empty nest syndrome. People go into depression and feeling like their life has changed. They don't know how to change it. They don't know how to open the next chapter. So we're navigating all that right now. Navigating still recovery from a major health crisis, navigating menopausal shifts that actually have been affecting a lot of my health and different issues. And then just the whole changing roles in life and reinventing yourself. So I hope that all somehow sticks together and you don't have to have a major life crisis to start taking care of your brain. Okay. I want people to walk away with this saying, I will start to eat my colorful fruits and vegetables, or maybe more nuts and seeds, and I will exercise more, maybe take more walks, and just really take care of your body, take care of yourself. Uh, it's such a cliche, but we only get one body, we only get one life, and I think having a lifequake woke me up to that, even though that's all I say and that's all I preach to people. But I really didn't realize how much I was not taking care of myself until then, until September of 2026. I'm sorry, menopause brain, September of 2024. And that was a big turning point for me. So I want to ask you if you have a flourish flash, like I always do. I ask all my listeners if there was something in here that kind of went bing, like light bulb moment. That's what we call our flourish flash. And if it is, share it, share this episode, comment, like, follow us, or just private message me. I'd love to hear if something does just change your outlook on things. That's why we do this podcast, because A lot of times when I speak in public, people say, "Oh my gosh, I never even thought of that." So, doing the podcast helps to spread the word. And like I always say at the beginning, it's our intent to help people flourish in their lives. So with that, don't fly off without seeing all the show notes where all the information's in there. And as we wrap up June as Alzheimer and Brain Awareness Month and all the stuff that we say, I think it's Men's Health Month. We had a really packed June and it was really great. And we have a lot of stuff in store for you for July. So until next time in the Hive, be kind and flourish fully.